Welcome to Oasis, St. Luke's midweek service. My name is Deanna Heiss, and behind the camera we have Doug Castle. I am in the middle of reading a book right now that I think has topped a lot of bestseller lists. It's called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. My sister kind of insisted that I read it, and she's older than me and sort of bossy, so here I am reading the book. But there was a paragraph that I read recently that really resonated with me, and I thought it might resonate with some of you. She says this: "If you are uncomfortable, in deep pain, angry, yearning, confused, you don't have a problem, you have a life. Being human is not hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because you're doing it right. You will never change the fact that being human is hard, so you must change your idea that it was ever supposed to be easy." If any of you can relate to that out there, I know that I can. We are imperfect people living in an imperfect world. God knows that. Sometimes we need reminding of that. You don't have a problem, you have a life. So to all of us living those lives out there, welcome to Oasis. No matter who you are or where you come from, you are welcome here. Thanks for joining us. Our guest tonight for Oasis is Kari Nelson. Kari, thanks for joining us.
You bet. It's great to be here.
So several years ago, Spencer is one of your kiddos. How old is he now?
Almost 7.5.
Almost 7.5. So it was probably about 7 years ago, right over in that area there, after the 11 o'clock service. We had sat behind you, and you had 3 kids at the time. And Spencer was a baby, and we had sat a couple rows behind you at the 11 o'clock service. And my kids are a few years older than yours are, and I remember the busy stage. And your kids were so well behaved, but very busy. And you were by yourself that morning, and I later learned that you and Evan, your husband, sometimes have to trade off, but you guys, one of you was always there with the kids, and you were so lovely to them. You were so lovely and listened to them and tried to keep them quiet. And I remember just tapping you on the shoulder after the service and telling you how fun it was to watch you with your kids, and how I remembered those days. And I'm sure in true Kari Nelson fashion, you said something sarcastic and self-deprecating, and I thought, oh, I like her already. We're gonna be good friends. So then fast forward a few years, and we both ended up at the Thursday morning Bible study together, so you did not disappoint. I loved getting to know you better and hearing sort of your story, and as your family grew, and just talking about our faith and that journey. And I have for a long time thought that I would love to have a conversation with you for Oasis. And at different points over the past couple years have sort of lobbed a little ball over to you to say,
You have.
you think you're ready? You think it'd be that time? You think we can do this? And I loved your honesty, saying, not right now, plate is full, not right now, not right now. And then finally I wore you down, and here we are. And you and I exchanged a couple emails prior to this, and you wrote an email, and with your permission, I was going to read just a snippet because I think it so encapsulates who I have gotten to know you as, and I think a lot of people will relate to what you're saying, and then I'd love to kind of unpack it with you and
Sure.
and find out where that lives in your heart. So this was Kari's email to me probably a couple days ago. Since agreeing to this, I have been hit pretty hard with tough stuff at work. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Even at the time it occurred, I was like, man, I agreed to Oasis. I've agreed to let it sting and hurt because it does. And through many nights of no sleep, I don't have answers from God, nor am I actually asking. But I am constantly replaying all the good thoughts and memories, and I do believe that is his gift. I am a work in progress, Deanna. I think that is one pearl of wisdom to throw out. We will sit in the second row with kids upside down, tractors going to the pulpit, a Heimlich maneuver in the middle of the sermon, choking on a lifesaver, unbuttoned middle button at Easter. You get the gist. But we are there because we need to be. No judgment on anyone else either. God is patient with me and my ongoing speed limit of 85 miles an hour. Work in progress. I am going to show up, talk to him a lot, and I am so thankful in the small and big gifts of seeing that he is right there. God is good all the time.
All the time.
I mean, we could just hard stop there and
Get some nachos.
get some nachos, right? I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. There is hard stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that you come back to, it's hard, but I know God is in the hard stuff with us. Where does that faith come from? And tell us a little bit about how you're able to have that perspective, even when it is hard.
Well, I think that I've had a life that I'm so blessed by the people around me who have faith as well. And it's not just coming from me, but it's being in that community and being surrounded by those people. My parents have a deep faith. My grandmother was very, very important and special to me. And one of her gifts that she shared, and I think I understand why, and has become inherent, is the gift of thankfulness and gratitude. And I say that it's been passed on because I now see it with my mom, my parents, my aunts and uncles, my siblings, my cousins, that God is good, or I'm so thankful for. And it does, at one time, you hear your grandma say something over and over and you go, yeah, I've heard it, you must have dementia. But it's not dementia, it's the mantra, and it's the gratitude and the thankfulness. And so that when you do go through those hard times, when there is that darkness that's going to hit all of us, and it's going to be a different thing or at a different time and space, there's still this good that seeps in. And I just strongly feel that that's God. That's God's presence coming in. And I think a lot about the difficult difficulties I've faced, but also everyone has difficulties and everyone has challenges. And there are times when I think, do they have something good? And they do, because there can be someone that God is sometimes puts the someone or the sunshine. And I can't help but let go of those things. And sometimes when maybe I would forget, it's even my own children. And I'm like, oh, that's right. They're getting hit by it. And whether it's the Holy Spirit working in us, or I don't know, I don't need to know, but it's there. Those are the things that keep me going. I don't particularly think that my faith is stronger or weaker. I don't even look at it as on a strength spectrum, but it's present. And sometimes it's very present and it's good and you can feel it and share about it. But then when there's those hard times too, that I realize that it might not be really my faith that's getting me through, but it's the other people who have the faith that are around me, helping me, marching me along through it. And then you get there, wherever there is. And stopped asking for answers, because sometimes there aren't answers, but you're there and he's there and those people are there. I've just given myself the grace to not be all-knowing, because it's okay. I don't need to be. And it's also a great way to get a conversation to stop with your kids too, right? Is I don't have all the answers. But it's true, I don't have all the answers. And I'm his child just as much as they're my children too, so.
You mentioned your kids, and I mentioned that was one of the first things that I noticed about you is how you were with your family, and I've seen them in the children's choir and waving the palms on Palm Sunday. I know, and at Vacation Bible School over the summer. First of all, tell us about your husband and your kids, who lives with you, and then also tell us a little bit about. There's one thing to bring your kids to those things and sign them up for stuff, and it's another to help them internalize faith. And I know that internalizing faith is really important to you and something that you're on a journey, I'm on a journey of, we're all on a journey of. And I would love to hear, too, how you are trying to facilitate that with your kids. So tell us who they are first, and then let's tackle that.
So my husband is Evan. He is a great dad. When we married very young, and I once told him that I wanted 4, and he wanted 2, and we have 4. Claire, Paige, Spencer, and Anna. And they are, well, let's just say the apple didn't fall far. So they are very energetic, social beings. And we joined St. Luke's after we moved here from Milwaukee. And Paige, well, when we moved, it was Paige that was a baby. When we joined, Spencer was a baby. And the biggest thing that drew us to St. Luke's was the family ministry, because we were very involved in our church in Milwaukee, and Claire was 2, but she was very in love with her church, and she was not convinced that a new church could replace it. And so we had to give her a warm-up period. And fast forward, St. Luke's had everything that we needed: loud music, fun, vibrant services, and a place of community. And our kids, it's their home now. And so we come, and we're in the second row, as you mentioned. We are loud, and we're often not in our chairs when we need to be, but we're here, and they love being here. And I think that was the first key, was wanting to come. That's not a task, and it's not just on Sunday. And then it's the fun activities, and we meet people, and we have this community, and we have our church family, and then those lessons just fit, and then it opens up more conversations, really, rather than me sitting them down and having a deliberate conversation about the Bible and our faith. It's these moments, these pages are opened up after they've been here. And so I think that it's a process, it's a nurturing, but to have this be their place as much as it's my place is really a testament to St. Luke's, and we love being here. And yes, we do rotate sometimes because I'm on call, and I'm a nurse practitioner in cardiac surgery. I take care of critically ill patients, and the stress level can be high. It's what I need, but it's also what we all need. And my kids will often say, do we need to pray for your patients? Or who do we need to pray for if I'm not here because I'm on call? And so I think that what they're already understanding is the blend that I need and what we need, what we all need, is that it can be that blurred line between what I do, what our worlds are, and how they are enmeshed together.
And say a little bit more about your work as a nurse. Such difficult, stressful, important work, and difficult, stressful, and important this past year, probably like none other. How in a medical setting, cardiac surgery specifically, where I can imagine stress levels are high, it is literally a life and death situation, how does your faith play a role in the work that you do as a nurse?
So I love the cerebral aspect of my position. I'm one of 2 nurse practitioners that work with our surgical team, and my main focus is the preoperative and postoperative care in the critical care setting. And I love doing the cerebral aspect. I love the challenge that it brings, and I love making patients better, and I'm a part of a great team. But I think more importantly, it's the scariest, most fearful time for patients and their families. And there's so many unknowns. And there's sometimes when I have to bring pretty bad news. And I remember the first time I had to bring some tough news, and I thought to myself as I'm walking the stairwell, I don't even know what I'm going to say right now. How is this all going to even come out? And then how am I going to get through answering all the questions? And it was a prayer and a plea. And with time and a lot of white hair, it is part of my ministry. That's where I feel very called, that I can help. I can answer their questions. I have been asked to be part of baptisms before surgery at the bedside. I have been there to help say goodbye. And I've been asked to pray during the consent process as we're headed into the OR. And in all of those moments, it gets flipped right back, that they're reminding me of my faith in all of that. And recently, I lost a patient who was so special to me. She had metaphorically climbed Mount Everest. She had been through so much, and she was on the other side. She was finally going to be a normal running around little girl. And very suddenly, she went to heaven. And Ooh, it stung. And we were all hit hard by her passing. And that's when I just decided that I've just got to let this sting. And her mom sent me a text message that said, "Thank you for just help pray for me through this fire grief. Thank you for being there." And she said, "You loved her so well." And so I think that is how I get through. They need love. They need a lot of it. And if it means more time, more conversations, prayer, that's what I've been put in that position. It didn't happen by coincidence. And then the first outing that I really had during the pandemic was actually her funeral. And they prayed for the family, and their second prayer was a prayer for the providers. And that's when it hit me that I was like, oh my gosh, here I'm worried about them, and how am I going to help them, and how am I going to get through it? And they're praying for us. And wow, that's what this community of faith is all about. And it goes both ways, and sometimes it's small, it's these really small things on a daily basis, and then you have these big things, and then that's where it can hit you. And most of the time, the people I take care of get better. And she was better. She was at home. She was called to heaven unexpectedly. But I have so much joy in helping people get through what is hard for them. And I don't have joy because they're struggling. I have joy because I have something to offer. And I do feel called. And so that is my ministry. That sometimes I can't be on the subcommittee here physically. But I think there's so many people also at St. Luke's who are taking the gifts outside and taking the ministry outside. And that's what I feel called to do.
That's a wonderful quote. I don't feel joy because they're struggling. I feel joy because I have something to offer. That's wonderful. And when you look back at the time that you were considering going into nursing, do you feel like you had the context, the lens, the experience at that time to believe it was a calling, or has that developed, that sort of approach and that realization come to you as time has passed?
I worked in the business world, not knowing what I wanted to do when I got out of college. I had a degree in biology, and I was working in pharmaceuticals. And what I missed most, and there was nothing wrong with that position, I needed more. And that's when I decided that I did want to be a nurse practitioner. I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be cardiac surgery, but I like the fast pace. And what I quickly realized is that I had the traits, perhaps that I didn't even know about, but I had traits that other people recognized in me. And again, a little nudge, sometimes when we don't see it. And now I know for sure that it didn't all happen by accident. That sometimes it is that little voice inside when you kind of keep trying to push it away or fight it, but then it's that opportunity, and then it's the job that gets offered, and then it's with the right people. And now, a decade later, I am amazed at the love and the challenge that all of it brings, and I adore all of it, the hard stuff, the pager going off at midnight, the sad times, the times we celebrate, but it all came together the way it was meant to be. I couldn't have put it together this well, that's for sure.
So God, it sounds like God cultivated some sort of natural abilities and aptitudes that you had, and really,
Yeah.
and really led the way, cleared the path.
Yeah.
And I think this I may be stealing this from the military, but in hearing you describe it, I'm remembering a slogan: "It's the toughest job you'll ever love."
That's true.
And that feels kind of what you're describing. It is, you don't love it because it's easy, but you love it, kind of to your other quote, you love it because you can do it,
Yeah.
and you have skills and aptitudes that somebody else might not,
Yeah.
and it puts you in a position where you can use those skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm so thankful for everyone who can do other things, and people will say, how do you do it, or why do you do it? And sometimes there's not an answer to that. But I do love what I do, and sometimes the hours are long, and they'll say, well, what about your family? My family's great. When things are meant to be, sometimes we're ministering to them as well. And with this little one, when she passed away, I didn't actually share it with my children until after the funeral. And my oldest connected the dots, and she immediately got sad, and she started crying. And I said, it's okay to cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with letting it hurt. And she said, but how do you do it? How are you going to do it? And I said, well, I'm going to honor her by continuing to care for everybody else. Is that it's okay to have both feelings. It's okay to be very happy for someone else and grieve with another. And we don't have to put those in separate silos. And I said, in the meantime, you can pray and be sad for them too, but you can also just remember the best that she had. And that's what I would want for anyone else too, in whatever they're doing, because I can't do taxes and numbers and business. I'm terrible at it. But there's something that that everyone has to offer to the next person who might be the idiot sitting across them at a desk, is that I'm so thankful for them in whatever they might do. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think our community of faith comes through.
You mentioned how the idea behind people sort of using their strengths to the glory of God, and in order to find maybe their own vocation and help others, which brings me around to the idea of service. And how do you think service can look different in different seasons of life?
I remember being a young married mom. I was in graduate school. I was working night shift. I was at church, sitting next to my grandma, and they were talking about time and talent. And I was like, I should join this and do this. And I don't even know what I spouted off. And my grandma was 87 years old probably. She looked at me and said, absolutely not. And I was like, what? How am I supposed to be like a Lutheran church lady if I don't sign up for all these committees? And she said, you have enough on your plate right now. Your time will come. And I just listened, because it was just better to listen. And I realize now what she was intending. And that was, there are going to be times, and there are times for us to provide that service, to serve on a committee. I love taking meals to people, but I can't always take meals to people. And what she was giving me was the grace, in which now I've accepted to be my own grace, of there are times when we can do it, and then there's going to be times when we maybe can't. And that's okay. that nobody's sitting there with the check boxes saying you've only done this many committees, or you haven't done as much as this next person. That's not what it's about. And she was giving me that insight, and it's one that now I feel is so important, that if you have the capability, the desire to do it, if that's really where you feel called, then by all means. But it's okay for your service to come in different flavors, that it doesn't have to be what your friend or your family member is doing. I can still be a Lutheran church lady in my own right, but it might look different, and it might not be right now. But when that time comes, when there is a change of season, when you look left and you look right and you're like, oh, I don't have anyone that's taking all my oxygen, I could help someone, then by all means, that might be the moment. And I think that sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to have enough faith or to do enough so that we're either recognized or accepted, and that's not what it's about. That it's really about doing the ministry wherever we can do it, or however we can see it fitting at that moment. That I didn't need to go through my Lutheran lady checklist in the first few years of being a young mom. And I think it's going to change. I don't know how it will change. I won't ever quilt, probably. The gift isn't there. But I do appreciate those that do. And I think that that's what's great about this journey, is that it's not all at once. It doesn't have to be.
Well, Kari Nelson, you did not disappoint. You were worth the wait.
You're sweet.
Thank you for joining
You're
us.
Sweet. Most welcome.